It's 11:05 p.m. in Düsseldorf, and there are no lights on except for the glow of 3 monitors and a bitter cup of coffee. Mark is 32, a strategy consultant, ex-McKinsey, and still in his client's boardroom. His hotel check-in? That'll have to wait. For the last 8 weeks, Mark's been embedded at a pharma logistics company in Düsseldorf. They've been struggling with late shipments, bloated inventory, and spiraling costs, all for high-value pharma products. The CEO of the company wants transformation, and operations want stability. And Mark, he just wants to find out why shipments keep missing their delivery window. So he's created maps, he's done interviews, but still, something's off. Everyone tells a slightly different version of the truth. So he reopens his PowerPoint deck and wonders if he's solving the wrong problem altogether, and if the truth might be a lot more complex. Welcome to Trust the Process, the podcast that demystifies the world of process mining and process intelligence. I'm your host, Angela, from the Celonis Academic Alliance. And let me tell you a little bit about our case. Today, we're in the boardroom of a multinational pharma distributor specialized in cold chain distribution of vaccines and temperature-sensitive medication. Their biggest customers are hospitals, pharmacies, clinics, or wholesalers. And we are here with Mark, whose task is to solve how late deliveries are impacting customer loyalty, and why inventory holding costs are suddenly skyrocketing. So to help us understand the day-to-day of Mark, we've pulled together our own boardroom of expert consultants. Julia Merz is a partner at PwC. Julian Fischer is a partner at McKinsey. Benjamin Ludders, partner at EY. Gabriela Gallik, managing director for process mining at OFI. And Gori von Hirschhausen, head of transformation consulting at PwC. And together, we'll crack this case and reveal why traditional consulting can sometimes fall short. So let's get on the case. Consulting can be glamorous, but not always. Mark's day started at 6 a.m. in a rented studio near Düsseldorf. His client is our major European pharmaceutical logistics provider for vaccines, biologics, oncology meds, and anything that has to stay cool and arrive on time. By 8 a.m., he's in his client's warehouse. By 10, he's in his 4th interview about processes. And by 6 p.m., he's elbow deep in Excel. Gori shares a bit more about that day to day.
I'm old enough and I'm long enough in the business to give you some insights on how it worked before process intelligence was available. So as you can imagine, there is just one source of information that you can basically use, or just few. The first one is a walkthrough, right? So you try to be and sit right beside the person who is doing a process, who's executing a process, to see how the person does the process. Then you have documents in which you describe an idle process, where you describe the standard process. Then you have, of course, the opportunity to interview somebody. But with all these different pieces, you only look indirect on the process, because you get a certain understanding from an interview. You do see how the person is doing the process today with a walkthrough. And in the document, you will read about how the standard process should look like. It doesn't tell you how the process variances in the system really looks like.
Lately, order management at our pharma company was anything but chill. Inventory was piling up and there were millions in high-value drugs just sitting around. Deliveries to hospitals were late, and shelf life was slipping. The stakes were high. There were mistreatments, lost money, spoiled vaccines, and a looming GDP compliance audit. Good luck with that one, Mark. But how would a consultant like Mark go about fixing this problem? After this break, we've got the answers.
AI's got a trash problem. It's getting garbage in, so it's putting a lot of garbage out. AI is powerful, but it's only as good as the processes and data it's working with. That's why at Celonis, we make processes work and give AI the data and context it needs, like rules, benchmarks, and KPIs, so it knows what makes something good or bad for business, and AI can go from letdown to breakthrough. Search Celonis, Celonis, to make AI work.
For years, process consulting followed a familiar playbook. Workshops, interviews, sticky notes on a wall, and a process map built from memory. Mark followed exactly that script. He interviewed warehouse managers, compliance, operations leads, and he heard a lot of stories. But something didn't add up.
The real issue is with the road freight team. They're slow to book cooling units.
No, road freight is fine. It's the warehouse team that delays outbound handoffs.
Honestly, it's regulatory overhead. We spend hours on documentation no one even checks.
Documentation's not the problem. The system just doesn't match how we actually work.
Mark was hearing 4 versions of the truth, and all of them felt right and wrong. So we are right in the middle of the so-called principal-agent problem. McKinsey's Julian Fisher puts it very bluntly.
I come in somewhere, I have a principal, he doesn't really know what his agents do. And when I go out in the consulting world, after having done this now for over a decade, and you go into interviews, you go into process mapping, and you have all these flip charts up on the wall and the brown papers, you never really get to the root of how process actually works and what people actually do.
So top-level management often has little visibility into what's happening in the warehouse or on the road. And on top of that, as Ben from EY told me, there are biases.
Was a good, let's say, working model for us, which is time and material in terms of workshops with a bunch of people sometimes, and asking questions with regard to people that are the owners or process owners, the owners for the process, how the process flow looks like in their mind. So, which is the first bias in it.
It might not just be bias. Processes can literally be outside of the human grasp. Ben's colleague Martin has his own opinion on this.
We all think we are process experts and we all have great titles, process owners, process experts, blah, 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 Lean Six Sigma, etc. But quite frankly, no individual on this planet is able to understand what is truly happening in a process, because a process is a combination of what happens in a system and what happens outside of a system. Most people underestimate that.
So interviews weren't the only problem. Mark opened the SOPs, that's the standard operating procedures, and quickly realized they were a work of fiction. Work instructions hadn't been updated in 18 months. Task durations didn't match what was happening on the floor. And one doc still referenced an old system that hadn't been used for years. Martin has actually seen this before.
My belief is about 50% is driven by the system, 50% is happening outside. I can put the exact same system in front of you and do totally different processes with it.
After process documentations came the BI dashboards. And the client had plenty of KPIs. On-time delivery, inventory turns, compliance rates. But they all showed symptoms, not causes. Then there were workshops, shadowing, mystery shopping, but they all told stories, and just stories. Mark needed real data. It's easy to talk about macro pressure in abstract terms. But for Mark, the pressure wasn't abstract. It was very real, sitting in that walk-in fridge. There were millions of critical meds piling up. Dashboards that said, within shelf life. But just barely. And customers calling.
We can't afford another delay. These meds are time critical. If they don't arrive by tomorrow morning, we'll go with another supplier.
And inventory stuffed with drugs nearing their expiration dates. For a pharma company, this turned into a major cost factor, both in terms of real inventory costs and in terms of opportunity costs for losing customers that were dissatisfied. The rules of the game had changed. Supply chains were global and tighter. Margins were thinner. And there was zero room for error. Julian Fisher puts it best.
At the moment, we see a lot of cost focus. at the moment, right? As I said before, it's a time of uncertainty at the moment. It's time of cost consciousness. And you go to all the classical cost areas. So it's material, it's labor, warehousing, transport, energy as the big drivers. And when you link that to processes, it's the procure to pay, it's above site functions like order to cash, it's transport optimization, warehousing cost optimization.
Our inventory management had expensive lags and error margins that got thinner in the global economy. All of that while the state of the world and global supply chain was more unpredictable than ever. Gori von Hirschhausen explains the VUCA and BANI world concept that we're consulting in.
VUCA is the acronym for volatility, uncertainty, or complexity, ambiguity. If you look at this, volatility is basically describing how markets are performing these days. It's a stronger volatility. So you have growth one year and you have a decrease in the market the next year. So this is new. This was more, let's say, stringent over time, right? The uncertainty is about who has expected the re-election of Donald Trump? Who has expected that Russia is going to attack the Ukraine? All of this, of course, from a perspective after it happens, can be explained. But this is an uncertainty also when these things happen. What does it mean for the world economy, right? And this is, again, also complexity because we live in a world economy and everything plays into the same, right? And then you have this ambiguity, which means how does it go? And it fast and slow at the same time, push and pull at the same time. So that's VUCA. When it comes to BANI, we talk about this really is like the world is not in a good state, so it's brittle, right? And of course, this all makes us a little bit anxious. And we do see that trends from the past, which were linear, are non-linear anymore.
Consulting is changing, and process intelligence is the new tool in the playbook. Julia Merz saw that shift firsthand.
Initially, it focused on documenting and recording processes, but now it leverages real-time data and predictive analytics to provide much more deeper insights.
Back in Düsseldorf, Mark starts to play around with process intelligence. He sees unexplained inventory spikes at the central warehouse, while at the same time customers are complaining about late deliveries. Nobody could explain why. Until now. It turns out that the regional logistics hubs, especially the ones run by a third-party provider, were rejecting deliveries. Not because they didn't want them, but because they simply didn't have the cold storage capacity. So vaccines went back to the central storage and only made it to the end customers within the next delivery attempt. In Q1 alone, over 1.2 million worth of vaccines were caught in that loop. Delivered, boomeranging back, and delivered late to the end customers. And since the regional hub systems weren't connected, the central team never saw the flaw. But actually, this was just the start. And after this break, we'll take a look at what else Mark found and whether he ever got to check into his hotel.
Imagine your dream role in process excellence, business analytics, or digital transformation, just one click away. Introducing processminingjobs.com, where top talent meets top opportunity. Whether you're searching for your next big move or looking to hire the best in the business, this is where careers accelerate and teams level up. Because the future of work is all about matching minds and markets. Explore opportunities and discover what's next at processminingjobs.com.
Process intelligence consulting projects come in two flavors. There are transformation and there are implementation projects. Gabi from Ofi Consulting explains why.
Customers come with different questions to consultancy firms asking about process intelligence, process mining, or in general operational excellence. So on the one hand, we have, for example, strategic initiatives, right, from the COO, where they need to improve their processes across entire companies, right? They need to gain operational excellence. So this is just one use case why they come to consultancy firm and ask for help. So what we do, basically, we help them with entire change management. We have them with the entire transformation of their processes, right? With their architecture, with their processes. And then, of course, we use process intelligence or process mining as well to support this big transformation initiatives.
The first kind of flavor of projects is helping a company choose the right methods and sometimes even tools. So that's guiding RFPs, comparing vendors, and sometimes even the final tool choice. Julian from McKinsey sheds a little light on how McKinsey always stays vendor neutral. Yet, they sharply monitor the SaaS market.
So we are indeed always neutral when it comes to tech selection. What we normally do is what our clients choose, we also help them deploy and we help them get the most value out. So for example, we never get engaged in vendor selection processes on these things. And also if we get to support any of the business case logic behind, we never make recommendations on what to choose as such. The selection of a technology always sits with our clients. Internally, though, it's a little bit different, of course. There, we do have a tech stack which is focused, where we really scan the market for best of breed and then think through how can we best digitize our consultant work.
The other type of project, and sometimes the more complex one, is implementation. So that's digging into the data, uncovering root causes, and driving real change.
On the other hand, we have also, I would say, different types of questions where, for example, the customer already have a process mining tool in place and they really need help with the technical implementation, right? They really need 2 or 3 data engineers to help them work with the data, to help them build up the dashboards, and to really are deep in technical skills and support them basically really set up the tool in their environment.
Mark's project was a bit of both. He was recommending a solution, and at the same time, he was the solution. And process intelligence, it gave him the visibility to find the solution. And what he found was worse than expected, and better. Worse because the problems were everywhere. There were delayed handovers, regional hubs that bottlenecked, and SOPs months out of date. Better because now he could see the patterns and act. Julian Fischer on why fixing daily patterns matters.
A black swan is something that is really unexpected. You don't see that when you walk out in the English garden here in Munich on the lake, right? But if you see one, it's normally quite a shock. So COVID is a great example of that. We didn't see it coming. We were not really ready for it. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. It's a one-off event, but it's major in impact. The second type that I was describing are gray rhinos. And what that means is there are quite a lot of them out there. You don't see them often either. They're rare. And you normally see them coming from for a while. And these gray rhinos are basically for your supply chain scenarios that are very impactful and that you can prepare for if you prepare well.
Let's pause for a second. Black swans, gray rhinos, but what does that really mean? The full regional hub issue? That's a gray rhino. The cold storage capacity is something we can predict. The inventory bloat at the central hub? Another gray rhino. Return deliveries led up to crazy amounts of inventory bloat. But hubs didn't talk to each other. So the rhinos just hid between the silos. And EY's Ben Ludders had seen rhinos before.
What I saw in the past is really this siloed topic in terms of tools and enabler. Because let's say tools enabler like SAP or ERP systems in general, other CRM tools, they were there. Yeah, they are there since years. What we saw was really siloed. Yeah, data was in that system and in another system.
Process intelligence allows people like Mark to combine data across systems and look at the data in real time. A game changer for cold chain delivery.
Initially, it focused on documenting and recording processes, but now it leverages real-time data and predictive analytics to provide much more deeper insights.
Says Julia. And even compliance got sharper. because the process now followed compliance by design. Ben further explains the concept.
There are certain regulations out there, being it from an accounting perspective, being it from a sustainability ESG perspective, and being it for other tons of regulations that are out there that needs to be fulfilled by the process flow as well. And in these combination of really what should the process do for the company, plus fulfilling the regular requirements, is for me compliance by design.
Mark ran a conformance check against GDP-mandated SOPs. He flagged risks, set alerts, and gave compliance new confidence. And suddenly, humans had a grasp of the process.
And if I can start to understand the supply chain from my various suppliers and their subsources up to the customer and get real-time insights on what's happening, and I'm able to predict what might be happening, then I can really focus on a resilient setup. And it's interesting if you think about it. One of my clients has 400,000 products in their portfolio, and each of them has a bill of material with products and materials underneath. If you blow that up, it's huge. It's incredible. It's something that the human brain cannot even really grasp anymore.
It didn't take 6 months. It took 6 weeks. On-time delivery rose by 11%. Inventory turns tightened by 22%. Mark hadn't predicted a black swan. He just stopped ignoring the rhino between the silo. Can he go to bed now? It's 11:52 p.m. In a world where Mark stumbled across process intelligence, Mark closes his laptop and takes a taxi back to his hotel room near Düsseldorf. Back at the hotel, he opens his laptop one last time, and his process intelligence dashboard pops up right away. He's now monitoring live processes. He looks at order delays, staging times, compliance risks, and he's even built alerts, exact dashboards, and a weekly shelf life at risk report. And no, he's not doing that alone. Behind the scenes, there are process engineers, data analysts, and a solution architect supporting him from the firm's center of excellence. Mark still drives the client relationship, but the heavy lifting is done in a way that could have never happened before with interviews and sticky notes. Julian Fisher explained how even a business like McKinsey suddenly started to incorporate SaaS into their offerings.
I think we're at a point where internally we will not be able to support clients successfully and the same impact if we don't work with the latest technology out there. And I remember 7-8 years ago, people said, "You're crazy. We're never going to do that. It's a stupid idea." Luckily, this has changed a lot in the recent years. And we now see that bringing the best of the tech stack out there and the latest technology that also our clients are already deploying, and having a deep understanding of how to get the most value and impact out of that is a great combination for us to help our clients at a whole different level.
It's not just Mark's firm. Process intelligence has gone mainstream. McKinsey, EY, PwC, KPMG, all of them are embedding it into their delivery. Why? Because in a VUCA and BANI world, clients want answers fast. And process intelligence cuts weeks from discovery to decision. Mark still works late, but now he's got better visibility, and the data tells him where to look. That's the new consulting model. Because it's not just mapping, it's measuring, it's fixing, and moving on. That's a wrap on Season 1 of Trust the Process. Because when processes work, everything works.